Great, we're live. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. So, we have Natalie. She's the co founder and CMO of Outranking.io. She's also a growth and team performance coach to several SaaS founders and has worked with more than 100 companies. Drawing from a 10 plus years of experience in marketing and building and growing remote teams, she helps SaaS companies identify and implement high ROI opportunities, clarify business priorities, and help scale. It's a pleasure having you on board, Natalie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. All right. Are we ready to go? Awesome. Looks like everyone can hear me. So let's go ahead and kick it off. This is the very first session, so I'm excited and honored to be the first one here. So the title of today's session is Host an Online Summit, specifically how to grow your partnerships. We know that people were forced to either cancel or pivot from an in-person event to a virtual event for the past few months. And some of those that did actually pivoted saw improvement in the results. So those who pivoted from an in-person event to an online event saw great results. So of course, everyone's itching to go back to in-person events. And while I do see this is happening in part of the world, for example, the US, Europe, we see they're already hosting some events. This is not true for the rest of the world. I'm traveling internationally right now. I'm in Russia. So I see a little bit different situation here. So really, like, for those who never organized an online summit, this is a great, or any kind of event, honestly, this is a great chance for you to test the waters and see whether this is something that you were able to pull off on a smaller scale instead of hosting an actual conference. So this is like, think of hosting online summit as number one, to test the waters, but number two, still see great results and benefit from actually an event type. And after all the companies that organize all kind of events, be it the summit or an in-person event, are seen as a thought leader. So just know that you are in the right place and you're right in the right time. Now, if you haven't done an online summit, I'm pretty sure that everyone's kind of thinking, do I have enough time? Do I have the manpower to pull it off? And right now, during this presentation, this is exactly what I'm going to talk about and see if I can debunk the myth that whether this is something that you are able to pull off or not. I'm going to start sharing my screen right now. Let's see how it goes. Perfect. You're able to see my screen, right? Put it in the chat. Yes. Sounds good. I see Gautam nodding. Awesome. By the way, I am able to see your chats here. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop either in Q&A or post something in the chat. Or if you feel a little bit extra lucky, you can go ahead and raise your hand. And I am actually pretty well versed in the Airmeet platform. It's a great platform, so I can actually bring you live on stage here if you have a particular question to ask or you have anything that you want to talk about here, so that it's not just me talking about online summits, but I'm actually answering your guys' questions. All right, let's kick it off. So my name is Natalie Luneva, and I am, in addition to growing my my own company with my husband, I'm also a co-founder at a couple of other companies. Outranking.io is one of them. It is a platform that helps to produce SEO optimized content with the power of AI. I'm also a growth and a marketing consultant to SaaS founders. And my kind of main goal is to help SaaS companies grow. So I'm looking for opportunities for them to scale. And the idea of hosting the summits actually came to me when I was trying to grow one of the companies. And just I'm excited to talk about that and see what are some of the things that you can learn, and whether this is something that you want to host an online event. We know that there are a lot of companies that benefited from hosting, from having partnerships. And my particular idea of generating those partnerships is coming from hosting online summits. I'm going to talk about how you were able to generate your first few partnerships. Let's talk about 10, not more than that, because 10 is still enough. We know that a lot of companies like HubSpot, ConvertKit, DataBox, many other companies are growing with the power of partnerships. And this is what we're going to do today with the power of online summits. So let's talk specifically about the benefits of hosting online summits. Now, there are many benefits. Some people say that my company is too small. Am I still going to benefit from hosting an online summit? Or I don't have an email list. Is this going to be a problem? So the answer is here right now is if you are a big or a small company, hosting an online summit is for you. If you have a list, an email list of your ideal customers, leads, whatever. If you don't have a list, this is still for you. Okay, so this is really for everyone. Let's talk about the benefits. So today, specifically, we're going to talk about how to grow your partnerships with the use of online summits. But just know that there are so many other benefits. To summarize them into a few bullet points, we'll talk about partnerships as number one, building your network of influencers, increasing connections with the industry leaders, creating profitable partnerships with other companies and other affiliates, increasing brand awareness, growing your community is a big one. Increasing the domain authority, increasing your SEO as well, because a lot of companies are going to be citing your website and the site where you're going to be hosting the online summit. You're generating years worth of content. There are so many benefits. All right, so I'm hoping that I convinced you a little bit that hosting online summits is actually something that is worth and something that you want to look into. Let's talk about some of the results. I'm hopefully just I'm going to spark some excitement in you. So I'll talk about 3 summits that I've hosted in the last couple of months. The first one we'll talk about is for user.com. I'm hosting summits for some companies, specifically SaaS companies. And for this company specifically, they had some presence in the European market and they were trying to tap into the US market. And so with the power of online summits, they were hoping that this is something that they can achieve. And so as the result for user.com, we had 2,500 people registering for the summit. We had speakers like Rand Fishkin, Nathan Latka, April Danforth, basically, all the top-notch speakers expanding their network, rubbing the shoulders, and just overall building those connections, which is so valuable. Another one I'll talk about is Deposit Fix. And the day I started, so I was trying to get companies to partner up with Deposit Fix. This is my husband's company that I'm helping to grow. And so I started reaching out to a couple of people, hoping to build those partnership relationships. Once you start doing that, for any of you, by the way, I'm really curious to hear if you put it in the chat here. Any of you try to reach out and build those partnership relationships? Put it in the chat here. Because when I tried to do that, I'll be honest, like no one responded to me. I tried different tactics. I sent different, kind of messages and tried to get people to reply to me. And you know what? Not a single soul replied. What do you think? As soon as I started, basically, I just thought of an idea. Okay, how do I get people to reply to me? And this was the first thing that came to my mind. How about I host an online summit and I invite those people to be speakers? Bingo. So when I started sending out people information about the summit and asking the same people who has not responded to my previous emails about partnerships, I invited them to be speakers. All of a sudden, those people started to reply. I'm like, right. So you haven't seen my, and when they reply, there's something like, oh, I apologize. I haven't seen your email, but yes, I'm so interested to be a speaker. I'm like, right. You haven't seen my previous email. So just bottom line is people start replying when I'm bringing something of value to them instead of, asking something of them, because, we know everyone has their own stuff to deal with. Another one is, another benefit that I'm going to talk about, Deposit Fix, that we had after the summit. The very next day when I started sending out those emails, not only did the people started to agree to be speakers, they also started sending me referrals. So 2 companies the very next day said, oh yes, I actually have a great customer for you. And another one said, I also have a great customer. So we have 2 great referrals. And then about a week after, we had both of them closed, and each of them had around 3K MRR, lifetime value. So 3K lifetime value just from reaching out to those potential partners and not asking anything of them, but really the given value. Another one is Wiremo, for example. So they had a great product at a good price, but they had no reviews, while competitors had a bunch of reviews. Their onboarding needed to be improved. I mean, there's so many improvements that could have been made, and they were really not known in the community. So what I decided to do is host a summit. And what do you know? We had two companies who wanted to be a sponsor for the summit, and they paid not for the organization of their entire event, not just for the organization, but actually the company actually like was in plus, was paid to host the summit because there was just more money for organization of the event, and basically the event was paid, and everything else that came after that, the leads, all the connections, all the leads, all the content that came from the summit was basically a plus. So there's a bunch of great stories. This is just three of them to get your head spinning and see this is something that you really want to do. So all of this makes hosting online summits is one of the smartest growth strategies on the market today. I really, really want you to consider this. So today I'm going to show you really quick in the next 10-15 minutes how you can organize your own event. And this is going to be basics from basically going from 0 to 100. All right. So here's what I suggest you start with. There are a few items to keep in mind before even like going the next step. First few items are: number one, topic. What topic do you want it to be around? I recommend you don't be too broad. You be niche. And then you can also use something like keyword planner to identify some of the keywords that people are looking for. But the main rule of thumb is do not be broad and try to be niche as possible, at least for your first event. Next, thinking about the date, it needs to be at least 90 days in advance. I've hosted a couple of summits. My very first summit was, I think, less than 60 days. That was a little bit of a stretch. I highly recommend, because of that you have at least 90 days planning so that you have enough time to deal with anything that comes your way, because, mind you, there's going to be a lot of things that you are not aware of. Next, whether this is going to be live or pre-recorded. I've seen a bunch of people do pre-recorded, which is probably fine, because our goal is to get a few partnerships and to collaborate with those speakers and get those speakers to be our partners. I always hosted all of my events were live so that I get a chance to collaborate with those people, talk to them during live event, and just it's a little bit more exciting in my opinion. So that's why I think if partnerships is our goal, which it is for this presentation, then I recommend you go with live event, live online, not pre-recorded is what I mean. Next, whether it's going to be free or paid, all of my events are always free. You can think about some additional upsells, like, I don't know, maybe $50 for additional PDF downloadable that's going to come after the summit with all the notes. Or you can have main event for free, but then you have VIP sessions, or I don't know, some additional sessions that you're going to charge for. So there are a few different things that you can do. All of my events were free. Again, because I'm not after making the money, I am organizing this for other purposes. Next, thinking about the type of the session. Usually I structure this, majority of the sessions are between 20 to 30 minutes, and then a couple of panel sessions and a couple of shorter sessions and maybe a couple of Q&A sessions. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Q&A because this is important. Next is who from your team is going to be helping. I recommend that you have at least an assistant. I have someone man in the chat because people are going to be dropping their questions and stuff like that. There's going to be some technical issues. I've had a bunch of issues. Oh my goodness. So it's just someone needs to be there with cool head, ready to help. Next, thinking about technology. Again, many different platforms. We're using one of them, Airmeet. There are a couple of other ones. I've used Airmeet. Highly recommend you guys to check it out if you consider hosting your online summit. By the way, the support is top notch. Gautam, you can just nod there. I don't see you because I'm looking at my screen, but I'm pretty sure that you're not in there. And so don't think about technology as being the roadblock. I'm pretty sure everyone's going to figure out things. Just dive right in, and then everything else is going to be figured out as on the fly. Basically, don't think that, oh, this is so difficult, technology is so difficult, so it's rather I'm not starting. Well, this is called procrastination. So there are 5 steps to creating a high impact. Yep. Gautam?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I thought that maybe you had something to say. I can hear you.
Yeah.
So there are 5 steps to creating a high impact virtual event. And number 1 is thinking about the end goal. Number 2 is speakers lineup, obviously really important. Marketing the event, actually launch and day of the launch, and then post-event activities. So let's start with the first one, and that is the end goal. Our end goal right now is always partnerships, but there's also always a bunch of those additional ones. For example, build an email list, brand recognition, right? There's so like generating worth a bunch of content. So all of that is still our secondary goals, but right now our main goal is partnership. Let's keep that in mind. Next is, let's talk about how setting up the lineup of speakers, because this is something that I want to share with you. Trial and errors, I've done this multiple ways, and I think the most impactful is, think about this as type A, B, and C speakers. So type B speakers are those people who are, let's start with type A, for example. Those are the top-notch people who are very well known in the community, but they unlikely going to share information about your event because they're, too well known and you are probably too small of a fish for them. The speakers are not the ones who are going to promote the event, but those are the speakers who are going to help convert people that land on your website to an attendee, because not everyone who lands on the website obviously going to be an attendee, right? And then number two is the biggest reason to get those type A speakers, because getting all other speakers is gonna become so much easier once you have at least one type A speaker. Type C speakers, those are they have a small community, they have a small list that they're gonna help promote your event to, but those are not big fish. But those are the people who are gonna have quality content because they're gonna prepare for that content the most. All right, they're gonna go above and beyond to promote the event and to make the session as good as possible. And those type B speakers, they are well known. They have an existing community, medium, small size community. So, and those type B speakers may potentially be your ideal partner opportunities. I recommend that you create a speaker tracker. So you have, all of the list of people, their LinkedIn links, their email addresses, and then just like a funnel, like a pipeline, like where they are in the pipeline. Have they replied? Have you connected with them, and everything else. Next, speaker criteria. The way that I'm choosing all of the speakers are basically have two main criteria. Number one, they need to have an email list, because around 50% of all of my attendees usually come from the speakers. What I mean by that is I try the speakers to have at least a few thousand email list, so that they can then promote my event to their audience. Obviously, their audience is going to be my ideal audience. That's why we're choosing them as a partner, right? And so number two, they need to agree to promote the event. What I usually do in a Google form that I create for all the speakers to fill out, I ask them at least two additional questions. And that is the question, how big is your list? And number two, do you agree to promote this event to your list? And that is totally fine for them to say no. If you don't have enough speakers, you can still welcome them. If this is type A speaker, you can still have them as a speaker. But if I have, let's say, 5 type B speakers who agree to promote the event to their audience and one who doesn't, obviously who is it that I'm going to choose? I'm going to choose those that want to promote it. So those are the two criteria that I usually use to pick a speaker. Next, inviting the speakers to become a speaker. So there are a few sources. Number one, those people who have a podcast, those are the influencers. Other type of influencers, maybe they own a Facebook group. Maybe they're admins of Slack channels for your particular industry, for your particular topic. And they've been speakers at previous summits is a big, big plus. So what usually I do, I check some other conferences that happened in the last few months, maybe a couple of years, and then I go through the list of speakers. And then I see this is something that someone who I want to reach out to. And I just create a list, and then I go one by one to reach out to them. LinkedIn number one. If they don't reply, email number two, and then a couple of email follow-ups. The way that I usually invite type B and C speakers is different from how I invite type A speakers. Once you get at least one type A speaker, everything else is going to become so much easier. You're going to get more type A speakers much easier, and those potential partners and type B speakers are going to be so much easier to get them to be speakers. Usually for all the speakers, one email just to get them to say, yes, I'm interested. I don't put everything in the email. I usually have like 3 to 4 lines saying, hey, this is how I know about you. I thought that you're going to be a great fit. We have those speakers already agreed. Let me know if you're interested. I'm going to share more information. They usually send a reply, something like, yes, I'm interested, share a little bit more information. And then boom, I'm sending all the information that they need to know, the session length, whether it's live pre-recorded, day of the event, other speakers, everything they need to know. And then that's pretty much it for B and C speakers. Now, when we are ready to, once we have at least 2 type B speakers, we're ready to go for at least 1 type A speaker, and this is going to be different. So what I usually do for all of those very busy, well-known people, what I usually say is, hey, I know that you're busy, and would you be interested to be a speaker at the summit? We anticipate this many attendees. We would love to promote your stuff, whatever it is, the company, services, course, whatever they have, to the list of all the attendees. We're only asking of you a quick Q&A session. If you'd like to do a keynote, that's totally fine as well. All of my speakers that I attracted, I haven't paid anything to any of them. So that's why we want to offer something in return to those speakers. And last thing, but not least, is I'm asking in the Google form that every speaker is filling out, one of the last questions is referral. Do you know anyone else who would be a good fit to be a speaker? And this is how I'm getting a couple of other type A speakers, because then if another type A speaker refers, another speaker to me, what I'm saying is, hey, such and such referred me to you. And so now they're like much more interested to talk to me because it's not just a cold outreach. Overall, speaker acceptance rates is about 50%. Keep in mind, not everyone is going to agree, but 50% is huge, right? It is huge because you're giving something of value to those people. Now, the next step, let's talk about marketing. How do we actually get those attendees? Number one is, yes, of course, your existing list. Social media. One of the steps in my spreadsheet, kind of all the to-do items, is communities. There are a bunch of Facebook groups, Slack channels, you name it. And so what I usually do, I try to see how I can promote the event in those communities. All of those speakers, like I said, around 50% of all the attendees I expect to come from the partners, from the speakers. Event sites, Meetup, Eventbrite, have their own directors. Airmeet has their own director, I think, so you can promote there as well. Next, podcast interviews. Leading up to the event, I highly recommend you consider being interviewed on a podcast. So about 2 months before the event, start reaching out to the podcast so that you can get interviewed, and then the podcast airs before the event. This is going to get you additional eyeballs. Also, ask speakers to record a quick video leading up to the summit. So maybe like 1 week before the summit, I ask speakers to record a quick 30, 60 seconds video where they explain what it is that they're going to talk about in the session. This is an extra boost where I'm able to, one more time without beating time and time again, but saying something new, talk about the event. And then obviously pay-per-click. This is something that we can do on Facebook and other platforms as well. Next, keep in mind that opt-in rate on your summit page is going to be around 60%. That means that around 40% of people that land on your website are not going to register. So make sure that you have a way to get those people to basically retargeting them. I know this is possible on a platform like Hey Summit. No idea about something that Airmeet, whether this is something that Airmeet does, but you're able to do it on Hey Summit. This is another platform to consider. And then the fourth step is launching. So the day of the launch, let's step back before the day of the launch. Let's say maybe a week before, because our main goal is to build those partnership relationships. We want to do a quick intro call with each of those speakers leading up to the summit. So maybe like 7 days before the event. This is going to give us an additional chance for us to connect and just build those relationships so that after the summit, I'll tell you the next steps after the summit. This is becomes a little bit more easier, and this page for us to reach out to them and start building those connections, partnership connections, becomes easier as well. Don't forget to send calendar invites to all the speakers. This is very important because speakers forget forget. Yes, speakers forget that they are scheduled to be a speaker. It happened to me multiple times. Also, don't be shy about asking speakers to promote the event. I highly recommend you create a private community. Whether if you don't have an existing community, you can create a Facebook group. This is a way for you to jumpstart your community initiatives. By the way, hosting a summit and community, I'm writing a book, Community-Led Growth, by the way, is something that goes hand in hand. So keep that in mind. We also want to do Facebook Live. Airmeet does great job of live streaming all of your sessions to whatever your platform, YouTube, Facebook Live, and be sure to interact in the chat. So at the end of the event, one thing that I think is crucial is I invite all the attendees and all the speakers. I do like a networking session at the end of the day. But then I also do another event, another session, maybe like 2 days later, just for the speakers, for us to mingle, for me to introduce them to each other, so that if they build some kind of a positive connection, they remember that it was me who connected them. And also it's another chance for me to say thank you. So this is the launch, and then post-summit activities. There are few very important things that we shouldn't forget. Number one, replace. People are asking for replace all the time, so make sure that you have it ready. Number two, networking for all the speakers. About 2 days later, we want that to happen. So send out an additional invitation to everyone. We want to do a solo call to explore partnership opportunities with all the speakers. So this is something that we want to set up maybe about a week after the summit. All the session notes usually need to be translated into blog post. All the attendees are very thankful for that, but this is also giving you a chance to reach out to those speakers one more time and thank them and tell them that you've done an extra effort to create this blog post, extra promotion for them. Video clips for each speaker. This is something, this is optional. You can do that if you have time to create maybe like 30 to 60-second video for them to promote themselves, and post-event follow-up with the attendees. Now, obviously, this is a given, right? So this is really about it. Those are the 5 biggest steps. And I am here to answer any of your questions. Again, my name is Natalie Luneva. And if you have any questions about the summits, you can go to natalieluneva.com/summits. Otherwise, I am going to kill my screen here, and I am going to check out if there are any questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Natalie. Yeah, that was really informative. I could relate to a few of it since I was planning this event. All right, so I think we have only 2 minutes left before the next session starts. So we do have quite a few questions. So I'll take up 1 or 2 questions right now. And then, Natalie, I'll have the other questions sent over to you, which we can then publish it later.
Sounds good. I'm actually looking at those questions. I can quickly go through them. Number 1 is Jugal is saying, okay, you're highlighting a different one. How can one leverage an online summit to bring in partner companies to resell your new product? Entire presentation was really about that. So you're building the relationships first during the summit, and then next you are talking about whatever you want to talk about. Once you have those relationships established, you've given something of value to them, them being a speaker at your event, everything else becomes so much easier. And then whatever type of partnership you want to talk about, you can talk about after the summit during your one-on-one session. Were those speakers paid? They were not paid. I didn't pay. I haven't paid anyone. How much time does it usually take to create a 1-day online summit? I recommend at least 90 days. Sometimes you can get by with 60 days, but I say if this is the first time, don't stretch it. Make it 90 days. Let's see. There was another question.
There's only 1 more question. Could we take that up later? Puneet, we'll have it taken up later. I think it's time for our next session. I'm really sorry to interrupt all of you. Great, so thank you so much for joining us today, Natalie, and all the attendees. So we have a lot of sessions lined up. Do stay back and watch the other sessions. So we'll have the recordings up on our YouTube channel soon. You can watch them there as well. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Thanks, Natalie.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Bye-bye.